We're going to record these. All right, we got share on. Okay. All right, let's get this out of here. All right. All right. Get this other thing. All right, so we good. All right, so we stopped off before. We had went through some of the things about Esau. We had started learning a little bit about Esau. So now we're going to look at the life and history of Esau. And I think we might have went over a little bit of this too, but I mean, we're going to start recording all these book classes we go through because we got a lot of different things that we want to go through as far as history books and history and all these things. Now, I'm going to show you another book I'm going to show you guys that you need to get if you don't have. Let me go ahead and do that right now. Let's see. This is a book right here. Let's see. Yeah. Come on. Book right here is called The History of Edom and Khazarians, the Other Israel. And it's by Melchizedek York. You might can't see it down here, but it's by Melchizedek York. And I'll take a picture of it or something and put it up on class tomorrow and remind everybody. Okay. But this is a real good book to have. And he has a couple of these. It's an older one. You can find it. It's blue, but it's real hard to find because when people start putting out information, they always take this stuff offline. But I was reading that book when I was up in the VA hospital, and the rabbi came in my room and I put it to the test and he was like shocked. So I know it's a good book. All right, so let's get back to where we were. All right. And I finally fixed my email too. So I'm gonna make sure everybody gets a copy of that. But I had tried to email this book out to a couple of people and I had to go back in. And now the only way they would let me use my email is I had to be able to let them look at my files, delete my files, and what else was it? Was
delete contacts.
Delete my contacts, look at my contacts. It's crazy. Otherwise, I couldn't even send an email out. So, but it just goes to show us what's going on. So now let's look at this life and history of Esau. Esau was the firstborn of Isaac, and thus was the heir to the birthright. And we're going to talk some more about this birthright tomorrow, because remember, we've been going over the firstborn, right? He derived from the direct racial lineage of Adam to Noah to Abraham. Thus, Esau was racially an Adamite, a Semite, and a Hebrew, the racial stock of the white race. You got to keep that in mind. So, because we know that Esau went all over the place. He was from Idumea to what's this guy's name? When he took over Spain, he took over Egypt, and then he took over Spain, and he took over Italy and Britain. So it's gonna come to me in a minute. The name, and you can find it in I think it's in Jasher. It's in Jasher Jubilee, some of this history. I haven't done this in a while, so I can't really remember. Plus I'm getting old, but it'll come back to me. Now, just as Esau despised his birthright, let's go to Genesis chapter 25 and look some of these up. Yeah, a lot of people don't really realize that, but and then even when he made this statement, this is a kind of a wild statement because really it's not too broad of a statement because it has a lot of truth to it. Zepho, his name was Zepho, Zepho. Zepho was one of the ones that was spread all over Europe, and you could tell by this red skin. But he also married a lot of Africans as well. So, this is why sometimes it's hard to spot this guy, but he's our mortal enemy. So Genesis 25, and we got to keep that in mind. So even when we look at the slave trade and all these other things, a lot of us thinking, well, this is just a plain white person. No. These were Jewish people or some of Esau's people. as we're going to find out how he ended up coming in. So we got a real good video we're going to look at to kind of help us. And a lot of this stuff is just, you got to keep looking for this, you got to keep looking for that. It's just one of those things that they have information all over the place. So if it's something that really interests you, like it did me a while back, then you start going to do your research on it. Okay, Genesis chapter 25 and 34. Then Jacob gave Esau bread and pottage of lentils, and he did eat and drink and rose up and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. So when we look up the word despised, we're going to see what? They won't even give you, yes, they will. It's H number 959. And it's the Hebrew word bazar, right? So what they're saying is, go back, man. This is crazy. All right, let's do this again. All right, so he despised it. So that means that he held it in contempt, disdain. He regarded with contempt, right? To him, it was worthless, right? Vile, despicable. That's what this word despise means. So to him it was worthless, which by we know, being a firstborn, he would actually rejected the commandments of Yahuwah, and he rejected the Melchizedek order of Yahuwah, as far as we've been learning so far. So when he sold it to Jacob, he also despised his race by marrying strange women outside his race. Esau married the daughters of Canaan or Canaanites. Let's go to Genesis chapter 28 so we can look at this. Because again, this is just book stuff. We're just trying to learn. 28 and 6. When Esau saw that Isaac has blessed Jacob and sent him away to Pandanarum to take him a wife from thence, and that as he blessed him, he gave him charge, thou shalt not take a wife of the daughters of Canaan. This is what his father told him. Don't do that. And that Jacob obeyed his father and his mother and was gone to Pandanaram. And Esau, seeing the daughters of Canaan pleased not Isaac his father, then Esau went into Ishmael and took unto the wives which he had Mahalat, the daughter of Ishmael, Abraham's son, the sister of Nebajoth, to be his wife. So we see that he was told not to do this, not to mix. But he did anyway. He just to despite his father, because again, he did not keep he forgot about the commandments. He despised everything about Yahuwah. So we know that we're supposed to honor our mother and father, right? In the commandments, but he did not want to do that, right? And even though Moses wasn't here, we know that, guess what? It's always been taught down, as we've been learning in class, and we're gonna get some more tomorrow. This thing has been passed down for generations, right? The daughters of Heth or Hittites, Genesis 26:34, 27:46, 36 and 2. We know the Hittites were who? They were Hamites, they were Africans. And the daughters of Ishmael, again, see, the daughters of the Hivites, Genesis chapter 36 and 2, and had married with the Horites. And some of these you're gonna find out if we went to Psalms chapter 83, these are some of our enemies. These interracial marriages were a grief of mind to Isaac and Rebekah. Esau's parents, Genesis chapter 26 and 35. The descendants of Esau from these marriages became known as Edomites or as Edom. The Edomites also possessed some Israelite blood by intermarriage, as in the case of Solomon. So not only was he already a Hebrew, right? He already had Hebrew blood in him. He despised that part of his heritage, and he just came up with his own thing. So he started marrying all these strange women, and then every now and then he still would remarry to try to come back, to keep the bloodline with Israel in it. But he married all these other people. So it's hard to really tell who Esau is. I mean, a lot of people say, what's the white man? But as we see, he married a whole lot of African women too. And if we went in and looked at that, let's go look at some of these. Genesis chapter 26.
Yes, I looked on my book site. The book is $22.
Yeah, it's not expensive.
No.
And Esau was 40 years old when he took to wife Judah, the daughter of Beri and the Hittite, and Bashemath, the daughter of Elam the Hittite. See, so he had plenty of wives, right? Now let's look at this here. Let's go, because we know that these Hittites, that they were, we see the Hittites, and in this setting, descendant of Heth, nation descended from Heth, the second son of Canaan. See, later in North, and so they ended up later in North Lebanon, right? And they probably around that area to this day. So we see that. And but we also know that at one time the Canaanites, again, they were Ham seed. So we see this. And if you want to go back and look up all these with your blue letter, Jasmine, have you been getting used to using your blue letter Bible, or do you?
Oh yeah, I use it all the time.
Okay.
And I know you taught me how to do the interlinear, so when I don't understand the words, I know how to look them up and stuff. So yeah, I've been using that a lot.
And what have you've been getting a lot from it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really
I
good.
still haven't what's the other one that you told me about? I think it's the Q Bible.
Yeah, the Q Bible.
Okay.
Okay, let me show you guys something, because we're in class right now. And let's see. We can kill this one and still be all right. Let me see. We can get rid of that one. Well, it might not let me. Let's see. All right, hold on a minute. Let's see what it does. There it goes. Just don't freeze up on me. All right, let's go look at this here. I'll show you guys how to use this Q Bible again. Now you can see what I'm doing. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you just come right here. Q. Just running my computer. It's time for me to get another computer. Q Bible. All right, just running real slow. Damn, did I? You guys still up here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's not responding. Hold on a minute. Come on, man. Stop acting like this. I might have had to have it up beforehand, but it still should work. Because if we're in some type of setting like we're in a class setting, I don't understand that. Yeah, it's taking a while. I don't know. All right, let's see. I don't know what's going on. My computer's like real. I can't even do. Okay, here we go. What's this going on? What in the world? Why is it going way down there? That's kind of weird. All right, well, let's see what happened. Want to give me another tab. It doesn't do it this time. I'm not gonna worry about it. I don't know. We'll get back. Well, let's see. Maybe I should have had it up, but I want to kind of show the people how to get in it. Okay, I don't know. I'll close that. All right. It won't let me do it right now, but I'll show you guys how to get in there. I'm gonna show you guys maybe doing class or before class. You just go to qbible.com and we'll like I said, we'll go through that again tomorrow, but I kind of really wanted to, I gotta try it one more time. Because this is like a real good resource. Like this is like one of the best resources you can use right now, because it has so many free books up here. The Apocrypha's on it. You have like about 10 different versions of the Bible by year, all the way up from some of the first ones. You have Greek Bibles. You have Aramaic Bible up here. You have the Greek Septuagint by LXX. Okay, I don't know what's going on, but anyway, the descendants of Esau from these marriages became known as the Edomites, as or Edom. Edomites also possessed some Israelite blood. Esau and the Edomites dwelt in Mount Seir, which Elohim gave to Esau for possession. We can find that in Deuteronomy 2 and 5, Joshua 24 and 4. This land was also known as Idumea. That's very important to keep in mind. And it's Idumea. The land of Edom, Mount Seir, lies south of the Dead Sea, stretching south to the seaport at Elath, and included the raven known as Petra, right? So if we look at this, we can see here's Ammon and Moab. If you remember about Ammon and Moab, these are some of our enemies. That's in Psalms 83. We know Moab had to deal with Lot and his two daughters. And here's Edom right here at our southern border. Here's Jerusalem. See, here's our land right here. And then what happened was, here's the Armenians up here. So what happened was, we had a war with the Nabateans, who are the Arabs, the Arabians, and they what we did was we brung them in, taught them some of the truth, so that they could guard our borders, and it ended up going way farther than that. And we're gonna get to that. I just want you guys to see this map showing the extent of Israel kingdom at the time of David's death, and the location of the land of Edom, which David had conquered. After the conquest of Judah by the Babylonians, some of the Edomites who had mixed with the Jews in their land resettled with them in Judea. Jeremiah 40, 11 through 12. 2 centuries later, all of Edom was driven out of Mount Seir. The Edomites were driven from Petra westward by the Nabateans. And before the middle of the 2nd century BC, they were occupying not only southern Judah, but also Hebron and the country to the north as far as Bethsar. The Nabateans now occupied Mount Seir, and the Edomites were driven into the old territory of Judah. The Maccabean family are remnant of true Judahites. Now that's what they say. See what I'm saying? But it's questions about that, about these Maccabees. Had ruled Judea from 166 to 37 BC, and under Judas Maccabee, you can go to 1 Maccabees 5 and 3, recaptured the city of Hebron from the Edomites in 164 BC. And we got a class on this. And again, I mean, I still think that these Maccabees were actually Greeks, but a lot of people don't go along with that, but I got proof of it, and I got a class on the Pharisees that I'm going to put up here to show exactly what the research I've found. We captured the city of Hebron from the Edomites 164 BC. During the time of John Hyrcanus, the nephew of Judas, the Judahites were again, it doesn't say Judah, it just says Judahites. And it just makes me, from my understanding, they're not the same thing. Again, faced with the hostility of the Idumeans, Hyrcanus confronted the Edomites, causing a decisive change in the relations between the two factions. John Hyrcanus conquered the whole of Edom and undertook the forced conversion of the inhabitants to Judaism. See? So this is another time when they was forced to undergo or come into Judaism. See? Not Torah. So we have to be able to understand that. Not Torah, but Judaism. See? That's why, and that's another way I know. See? That's why we always got to pay attention to this type of stuff, man. You know, it's very important. He didn't say that they were forced to come into Torah. You understand what I'm saying? They was, you know, so no, they was forced to convert into Judaism. Thenceforth, the Edomites became a section of the Jewish people. And this is why they was having a problem with the Mashiach. Because they was into a whole different thing. Judaism, or Jewish people, they know the Torah, they say they love the Torah, but they have their own books, like the Mishnah, right? And the Talmud. And they have a few other things that they use that they say that was not getting, forget about what was given to Moses. We use these books because they were given to the 70 elders at the mountain of Sinai. And this is what they say. This is why the Mashiach was always arguing with them, saying, look, man, you're putting these heavy burdens on the people on the Sabbath day. Not that they shouldn't keep the Sabbath day or that the Sabbath day is a burden. It's what they were doing that was the burden. Thus, at this juncture of time, the Edomites were then incorporated with the Jewish nation. Their country was called by the Greeks and Romans Idumea, right? Mark 3 and 8, Ptolemy geography. By the tide turned in favor of the Edomite faction when Julius Caesar made Antipater an Edomite procurator of Judea in 47 BC. So his son ended up being Herod the Great because he, that book I showed you, this brother goes through the whole thing about this, how Antipater was like a real strong warrior. He did a lot of different things. I mean, because they come from a warrior bloodline, and he saved Herod's life, and so Herod ended up giving him strength over the children of Israel by giving him the providence of Judea, right? And later on, it says when Antipater was killed 4 years later, his son Herod gained power, but was rejected by the Judahites. Herod shrewdly gained the support of Rome. With the Roman army at his heels, he returned to Palestine, and after 6 months siege, he captured Jerusalem and became king of Judea. Herod was a shrewd and unscrupulous tyrant and was despised by the Judahites because he was an Idumean and not one of their own stock. Herod hated the people of Judah and one of, see, now you see how this guy, see, that's why a lot of times when you read these books, you got to be careful because these guys like to play on words. See, because if you didn't know any better, you would think that the Judahite and Judah are the same. But this is how they do a lot of times. They do this type of stuff. They're real crafty, but when you know, you can spot it. Herod hated the people of Judah, and one of his first acts was to execute. Now, this is very important. See, so he has a lot of truth in here. See, 45 leaders. He says of the aristocrats, but what it was 45 leaders of the Sanhedrin. See, the original Sanhedrin. That's why if you ever get a chance, for who haven't watched it, go up there and watch the class in the class time series. You'll see a class on the Hasmoneans, because these are the people that end up ruling over us. They were rich, they had palaces, and that's why you'll see when you read these books, you'll see like the Jewish people believed, they believed in the resurrection and this and that. But it'll say that the Sadducees, they didn't believe in that. See, because they was not really us. They was some other people that was placed in there, another group of people that had other Elohims beside Yahuwah that was ruling us, but they was a rich, they were the powerful. Like if you ever watch a movie called Ben-Hur, his family was Hasmonean. But they'll say Jewish in the movie, but he had servants, he had a big giant house, right? All these things, and he was rich. But he was on top of a roof, and him and his sister was up there. A tile slid off the top of the roof, almost killed a Roman governor in the military. So what happened was there he got arrested and was put on a ship to be a row. He rowed on. He was like a slave rowing on a battleship. The ship got sunk. He saved the governor, or I can't remember what they call him in the Roman, but he was like a general, Roman general. Saved him, and then he ended up getting all his money and power back and got into the races, or the circus, as they call it, because you're going to find out that's one of the words where circus comes from. Or even if you look up the word church, it's going to say you that it means circus. That's why we say community or congregation. Now, let's keep going. To eliminate any rivalry for leadership, so he knocked them off. Having secured the kingship, Herod next destroyed the priestly line of Ocranus, the last being Antigonus, who taunted Herod with his Idumean origin and asserted that the kingdom should fall on one of the royal family. Finally, he murdered Astrobulus, the last of the Aaronic high priests. Herod then sought to affiliate himself with the high priesthood through marrying Meremy, Ashtabulus, sister of the daughter of the high priest. So now he said that too. And again, I had another thing that I was doing on this, and I just couldn't. Aaron's priesthood fell off a long time ago, so I don't need that. Kind of threw me off there. But whenever you try to go find out about this here, about this whole thing right here, it's hard. They pretend like they can't find any records and stuff on it. So a lot of times when you do this research on stuff, you're gonna run into a lot of brick walls. Now, Herod even rebuilt the temple as it was in ruins from repeated sieges, part of which Herod was responsible for by his attack upon the city. The temple Elohim became, in a sense, Herod's temple. Because I mean, you got to remember, we just got done reading how he knocked off all of the Sanhedrin. They say the aristocrats, but it actually was the Sanhedrin, and he put his own people in there. So, of course, they was following Herod's lead, and they already was foreigners anyway. This is why the people was going through such turmoil. This is why when they showed up to see John the Baptist, what did he call them? He said, "You den of vipers, who warned you of the destruction?" Because you don't even know nothing about this, because you are a different people. But you see, by watching TV and all these other things, if you don't do the kind of research that we do, you're gonna get tricked every time, because right away they just showing you everybody looks the same. The only time you'll see somebody of another nation is when they sweeping the floor or carrying something or something like that, or they fanning one of them, because that's the image that they want to put in our mind, right? Hey, Sister Kim and Brother Noel.
Hi.
Hi, Shalom. How long has class been going?
7:30.
Oh, we were told 8 o'clock.
Yeah, we have a text here for 8 o'clock.
I thought I said 7:30.
No, it says 8 o'clock, but that's okay. Well, I'm
Well-
sorry that we're not on.
Well, then
We've
if I
been
said
working.
8 o'clock, well, then maybe it's me. I might have sent some of y'all 7:30 and then some of y'all 8 o'clock. I don't know.
Yeah, you said us 8 o'clock. We've been watching videos of Edom waiting for class.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, then you guys should be, because we just started a few minutes ago. You should.
Oh, okay, good.
And
Well,
I'm
we're so
recording
sorry.
these, and I'm going to record these from now on, and we're going to put them up there. So it's no
Okay.
problem. We're going to have, that way, if you need to go back and reference something, you'll be able to see it. All right.
Okay.
All
Thank
right.
you.
So I'll try to, we'll say from now on, I'll tell you what, from now on, we'll say, okay, how's everybody feel about 8? Is 7:30 better than 8 o'clock, or is 8 o'clock better?
I'm good
Either
for either
one is
one.
fine for me.
Either one is
Okay,
fine for
let's do
us.
8 o'clock, that way in case anybody else, because there's supposed to be a whole lot of more people up here. Maybe they'll, that'd be a better time for them. And then again, I had to cut off my phone, remember? Because I was gonna make sure that I be here from now on for you guys. So that's why we see this. So even though Herod rebuilt the temple, let me get this a little bit bigger, as it was in the ruins from repeated sieges, part of which Herod was responsible for by his attack upon the city. The temple of Elohim became, in a sense, Herod's temple. We thus find that in the years just before the time of Christ, Judea was controlled by an Edomite faction who usurped the Judahite name. So he's telling you what happened, but he's still using the sneaky word Judahite, which I really don't like, but it's okay. He's giving you information, so he's telling you what happened. And a lot of us, we got to understand this. So when you're watching Charlton Heston and these other people on here, and some of these other Yul Brynner and all, you got to understand what you're really looking at. And so, but this guy had some good research. He had some sneakiness in there too, because they can't help it. Like, remember the lady we was watching last night when she said that she's a actual archaeologist, and she said now in the last 20 years we've been able to start telling more truth, because they had, he said the scholars back in the early 1910s through the 1940s, they had a lot of racial identity problems. And so for the sake of the Bible, they had to try to take Egypt out of Africa to make it like it wasn't Africa. And then they painted the Nubians as just that was the Africans. Everybody else was like white. You know, he was saying that. So the thing is, you got to understand, it's a lot of times these scholars, however their mind is, because they might not be following the commandments, even though they're going through to find this information out, right? Because we got to understand, even our leaders, they know what's going on with this because they study this stuff too. And you can best believe Hasatan gonna make sure they understand, because we know that Hasatan knows the scriptures inside and out because of who he was before he came, before he got thrown out, and how he gets down now. And we know that even when the Mashiach was dealing with him, he was quoting scriptures too. So let's look. So let's keep that in mind. Now, so Edom faction who usurped the Judahite name, land, and heritage. Under Hyrcanus, the Edomites were forced to be a part of Judean culture, but under Herod, the Herodian faction had control over the Judean culture and a way of life. So this is what they did, and even to this day, you will talk to people, especially people that's like Christians or people that are what do they call them? Zionists. They're in the Zionist movement. You'll have to shoot one of them people before you can make them believe that those people are not really Israel, right? Now, confounding the matter is the fact that some Judahites had intermixed with Edomite, Canaanite, and other alien stock at the time they returned from the Babylonian captivity. Let's go to Ezra chapter 9. This is what we got to, that's why I put that class up on the Hasmoneans. I could have went in a little deeper, but it's enough information for anybody that goes up there. I did a lot of information on that, and I had to look at some videos too, because this stuff is so mixed up, man. They got this thing juked up. I mean, you really got to spend days and months and hours on this stuff to try to get this stuff dug out. But like, again, I got a good video up here that we're going to look at. Let's see. What did I say? Ezra, right? Ezra chapter 9. Now let's look at this. Now, when these things were done, the princes came to me saying, the people of Israel and the priests and the Levites have not separated themselves from the people of the land, doing according to their abominations, even the Canaanite, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Jebusites, the Ammonites, the Moabites, the Egyptians, and the Amorites. For they have taken of their daughters for themselves and for their sons, so that the holy seed have mingled themselves with the people of those lands. Yea, the hand of the princes and rulers have been chief in trespass. When I heard these things, I rent my garment and my mantle and plucked off the hair of my head and of my beard and sat down astonished, right? But as we see here, we can go to Nehemiah. It's going to kind of give us that information. You can write these scriptures down if you want to go back and look at them. These mixed blood people were also hostile toward the Judean Israelites. Why? Because if we took down these nations right here, we're going to see. If we go to Psalms 83, it's going to tell us the same thing about the same people. And Esau and these same people are all around us today. And it's not just Israel, as I always got to point out. It's also those other people, like we got Kim and Noel here. They're considered traitors, basically, because they are not living the lifestyle that the rest of the people is living, that they could live, because they're here they are, they love Yahuwah and they want to follow Yahuwah. So when the punishment and then all the different killings and burnings, as Daniel said, when they start setting us on fire and putting us in prison, they're gonna get that too. Now, let's keep going. The land was not the kingdom of Judah, but the nation of Jews, Judeans. Historically, the Edomite became known as Jews, a term derived from Judea, which was derived from the name Judah, being the royal line of Israel, though they were never of Judah or Israel. So we have to understand that, see? But we understand this right now, see, because we learn it. All right, now let's look at something else. During Titus' siege of Jerusalem, Titus the Great, right? 20,000 Idumeans appeared before Jerusalem to fight in behalf of the zealots who were besieged in the temple. About 97 inhabitants of Judea were taken captive, and an unknown number had fled either before or during the siege. So when we look at this, even though we know according to scripture that the Idumeans did what? The ones that didn't, that because we said that some unknown number have fled either before or during the siege. So when Titus the Great came and he took the pig and he threw it up on the altar, right? And they said, look, we getting ready to take Jerusalem. We finna take it, right? And all that was prophecy because of what Israel was doing. Because when the Mashiach came, he came to break you free of this foolishness here. See, and put you back under the covenant with the Father. But a lot of us were so confused, and as we're going to see in later classes, I'm going to show you even Peter was tripping like that. That's why him and Paul got in an argument. Because when certain men kept showing up, he started switching. Because first he was sitting down eating with the strangers. And then certain men showed up. And then all of a sudden he got up and started acting like he wasn't with them. And Paul said, look, man, you can't be doing that, right? So we're gonna get some more into these certain men. We got to do that. Because that's just got to be part of this thing. So you have a full, and see, that's what I'm saying, praise Yah. See, this stuff just came to my mind. Just the Ruach is something else. So I know how I'm going to do this. I know how I'm going to do this now. I'm going to incorporate the Pharisees class I had with this book study that we're doing right here. And you guys are going to really understand this. And I like the fact that you guys are already doing your own research by watching videos. I love that. Now, so we see that during this, so when this happened, this siege happened, it says 97,000 of inhabitants of Judea was taken captive. It's more than that. But you still had the fight that went on. You still had the zealots that ran up to the top of the hills, and they still try to fight these Romans, and the Romans built a ramp up. And I mean, it's some videos that I can send everybody on that. It's just kind of like the one we're going to watch now. It's called Military Generals. And this guy does it in a way that, I mean, if you can even if you don't like that type of stuff, you can understand. Looking at this, so you had some of the people that escaped. All right, I need everybody to go on mute. Because it sounds like Kim and Noel. I know you guys are close to each other because I hear the echo. And okay, great. Now, so you have the Igbo, right? You have the Ashanti, right? And there was one more. Can anybody tell me who the other ones that fled to Africa were? The Ashanti, the Igbo. Okay, I'm gonna give y'all, that's gonna be y'all homework for next week. I need y'all to tell me, and I'm gonna give you I'm gonna give you some hints during the week to help you. Now, so they escaped down into Africa, right? Some of them even went overseas. They end up over, because we had some of us that ended up in Spain when Queen Isabella took us and put us in Negro land. But for the ones that didn't escape, they was grabbing us. When we was trying to get out of the city, these Idumeans was grabbing us, holding us, taking us back to the Romans. See? So this is the last mention of the Edomite people as a people in history. Why? Because what they did was we already know they was trying to take over the identity. Once we went into captivity and see some of the 97,000 inhabitants, I don't know why he won't say it here, was those that ended up being taken to work in the salt mines controlled by the Romans. Because they was like all the ones under 19 years old was the ones that was taken captive and then placed in these different salt mines and different places in Rome, and some of them end up being gladiators and all these, like we watch the gladiators on TV, Spartacus and all this. This had a lot of them were Hebrews. Now, this is the last mention of these people. Why? Because they went ahead and disappeared, but they still disappeared in plain sight because now they became the Jewish. They became Jewish, and they put Jewish in everybody's mind. So now when you look over and they over here at the wall, bending their head, oh, that's the people of God. See how they did this? But they're nothing. They're not, like the man told you, they're not even real Hebrews. Yet Bible prophecy indicates that Edom would be, an enemy of Israel in latter times. So when we go and we get into the slave trade, and I got some I'm gonna put up on that, you're gonna find out that the plantation owners was just not regular white people. They were Jewish. That's who had the money. That's who had the plantation. Everywhere we go, these people are around us. And this is again, it's not white people that hate you, it's this system. So you have the system that's ran by Edom. His symbol is the eagle. Everywhere he go, he uses the same symbol, so you know he's in charge. So his symbol is, and now what he's done, he's polluted a lot of the poor, because you got to remember, it was white people, even as well as us, that were slaves. So these people, they don't like anybody that's not them. So they run the financial district, the fabric district, the shipping, and even the military. They run everything. Everything falls up under them. They all in the White House calling shots. And this is what we got to understand about these people. So it's not, you can't just say white people. No, you can't just say it. You got to be definitive. It's these people and their system. So we find that their only connection to present day people and religion is with the Jews and Judaism. Judaism. We thus need to trace back the origin of the Jews to see who they are and how they fit into the puzzle of who is Esau and Idumean. Now, we're going to do this right here. We're going to stop right here. We're going to watch this video, and then we're going to come back, because then we'll have a few more minutes, and then we'll jump in this next week at 8 o'clock. But we got to look at this, because this is what's going to give us our understanding. Now, this is it's called Kings and Generals. This is a real good series. I'm telling you, you want to find out history, and I compared this to a whole lot of other documentaries and everything. These guys here, they're pretty thorough, pretty thorough. So this is how we're gonna learn about these Khazarians. And again, and while we in this in the book club. All right, come on, boy. You gonna go? Let me see. Here we go.
Stories of individuals who went from rags to riches throughout history and in our current age are some of the most inspiring and enthralling tales we know. The lower the status of the eventually triumphant figure, the more exciting the tale, and there is no status in the medieval world lower than that of a slave. In this video, we will examine the origins of the Ghaznavid Empire and the life of its...
Hold on, they did something happened, hold on. This is not the right one. Hold on. Give me 1 second, y'all. We gonna find it. What did I do with it? Egypt. Where was it? I know I had it already. See how I do it now? I mess this up when I'm trying to record. I always do stupid stuff like this. Let me see. There it is, right here.
The policy led many Jews to flee from
Let's
2
go.
gold coins in value. However, it seems that these recipients were not the greatest.
All right, here we go.
Emperor Constantine VII stated that letters to such exalted figures as the Pope and Frankish Emperor ought to bear a seal worth 2 gold coins in value. However, it seems that these recipients were not the greatest priority to the early Middle Age world of the empire. Holding sway from the Black to the Caspian Sea, from the Caucasus Mountains to the Volga River, messages to the Khazar Khaganate were to bear seals worth 3 gold coins. In this video, we will explain why the Romans felt bound to honor these former nomads in this way. Shout out to The Ridge for sponsoring this video. The Ridge raises the standard of everyday things like backpacks, chargers and wallets into sleek tools for better living. Their flagship product, the Ridge Wallet, was launched on Kickstarter in 2013 and now sits in the front pockets of over 500,000 men and women. We carry so much pointless stuff in our leather bifolds that they often resemble suitcases, while the Ridge helps you carry less but always have what you need. It comes in titanium, carbon fiber, and over a dozen styles, ensuring that there is a good fit for everyone. The Ridge has 30,000 5-star reviews, a lifetime warranty, and free returns. Get 10% off Ridge products today with free worldwide shipping and returns by going to ridge.com/KNG and use the code KNG. Link in the description. While our last episode ended with the emergence of an independent Khazar state from the ruins of a decaying Western Turkic Khaganate, we must first go back a few centuries in order to establish just who they were and how they came to be. We know that the tribes which would eventually coalesce into the Khazar Empire were living in an area of the Pontic-Caspian steppe, straddling the northwest shore of the Caspian Sea, and probably formed part of the eastern section of the Hunnic tribal hierarchy. These horse-born warriors did what such nomadic peoples almost always did when rubbing up against the borders of settled civilization. They raided and plundered relentlessly, extracting vast amounts of wealth from the South Caucasus region. Halfway through the 6th century, the Khazars had subjugated almost all of the tribes north of the Caucasus Mountains, such as the Sabirs, Saragurs, Samandars, Balanjars, and others.
Now notice how he said that's the whole thing. It's about money and power. They always have been like this.
That didn't mean they were the region's overlords, however, because the middle 500s also saw Yabgu Istami and his lethal Gurk-Turk cavalry armies rampage west in pursuit of whatever remained of their former Avar rulers, whom the Celestial Khagan considered rogues. This conquest of the western regions of the steppe seems to have brought the Khazars under Ashina rule without much resistance, and the newly incorporated nomads became members of the Turkic Khaganate's circle of elite inner tribes, indicating their strength and importance as the Khazars formed a significant part of the Western Khaganate's martial strength. Their power was confirmed when the Western Turks made an alliance with Byzantium against Persia in 627, as the Turkic Yabgu, with whom Emperor Heraclius formed his pact, seems to have been a relatively autonomous Khazar, a group whom Byzantine chronicler Theophanes called Khazars.
Now you notice now, I want y'all to write down that word, the Byzantine and the Turks, because we're gonna, later on we go through some other stuff. We're gonna look at some more videos because we're gonna get to the bottom of this and we're gonna understand this. But I want y'all to write these two names, the Turks and the Byzantine. And eventually we're gonna bring this all the way up to the day, to present time. And that's going, now you're gonna see where the hatred and all this other stuff has come from. It's also gonna let you understand that these definitely can't be the people, because none of this stuff is supposed to be going on, because when Israel is gathered from the four corners of the earth, spiritual and physical, there is supposed to be peace. And the Mashiach is supposed to be in the midst.
As we know, the Western Khaganate dissolved into its tribal components at about this time, which finally gave the Turkic Khazars their independence. The 630s were also the time of Islam's stunning initial conquests, which took over Syria, Palestine and Egypt, and even put a final nail into the coffin of Sassanid Persia. More relevant to our story is the northern advance of the Rashidun armies, which eventually stood before the mighty Caucasus Mountains chain by 640. While the Persians and Romans had been content to merely defend against the nomadic forces, the conquering Muslims were not, and they now sought to assert superiority over the Khazars who resided there. The mountains were a formidable obstacle, but they could be surmounted by traversing one of two passes at Dariel or Derbent. If the Arabs succeeded in crushing the nomads to the north, they could outflank the resilient Byzantines and attack Europe from the steppe. In short, if the Khazars lost, the whole history of Europe might have been very different.
Right. And so this is why the Romans didn't bother them. Why? Because they're the same people. Their father is Esau. So this is where the hatred from the Arabs and these Jewish people come from, way back here. And we're going to show you, like I said, we're going to go through this. This stuff, I don't know. I get excited when I see this type of stuff because it puts pieces of the puzzle together. But that's why the Romans and the Europeans wasn't bothering them, because of Zepho. We're going to get into that. All right, my wife's looking at me crazy, so let me be quiet. All right, she wants me to be quiet and let y'all watch the film. All right, here we go.
The viciously expansionist armies of both Khazaria and the Arabs initially met in 642, when raiders serving the latter reached Derbent, a strategic city positioned at the narrowest point between the Caucasus Mountains and Caspian Sea. Conflict continued back and forth for the next 8 years, with the Muslims slowly pushing beyond Derbent and towards the Khazar capital at Belenjar. Meanwhile, the armies of the Caliph managed to defeat a Byzantine army in Armenia composed partly of Khazar and other steppe allies. A climactic offensive was launched in 652 in the form of an Arab army tasked with the conquest of Belenjar itself, which would serve as a foothold for Islamic armies on the European side of the Caucasus Mountains. In the great battle that followed, Khazar defenders used vast amounts of ballistae and catapult artillery to repel repeated Arab assaults. 4,000 Muslim troops were killed, including their commander, Abd al-Rahman ibn Rabi'. The surviving Arabs were driven back across the mountains by the victorious Khazars and did not attempt any more serious conquests to the north for decades. Instead, their gaze returned to Byzantium. The Caliphate besieged Constantinople on several occasions, but as we covered in a previous video, failed to breach the great city and lost their momentum. Had the Arabs managed to encircle the Byzantine Empire by piercing through the Caucasus and assaulting it from around the Black Sea, it is probable that the strain of such a two-front war would have sealed the empire's fate there and then. While war between the ascendant Caliphate and beleaguered empire was raging, a still ferociously expansionist Khazar Empire restarted its own war against other steppe peoples north of the Caucasus who had still not submitted to Khazar rule. In the 650s and 660s, hegemony was asserted over the Magyars and Bulgars, the latter of which were scattered in many directions. Some remained under Khazar rule, while 2 other columns of Bulgar refugees ended up on the Danube, where they would have extensive relations with the Byzantine Empire, and on the Volga, where they would become known as the Volga Bulgars. These were wars of conquest, after which the victories incorporated the vanquished into a Khazar empire, possessing a stable administration and ruled by a Khagan like the old Turkic realm had been, a Khagan who appointed his own governors to administer seized lands. Since their defeat at Belenjar, the South Caucasus had changed hands multiple times and suffered repeated Khazar attacks, but by 692, the Umayyad lord of Armenia set about establishing a stronger defense against his enemies beyond the Caucasus. In 721, the Khazars had grown strong enough to take the offensive themselves, invading Armenia and instigating a 15-year war which became known as the Second Arab-Khazar War. While this conflict appears for the most part to have been a series of back-and-forth campaigns, following the same pattern over and over, it was incredibly intense. The often exaggerated Arab sources tell of armies 100,000 or even 300,000 strong colliding on those Caucasian battlefields. Though these numbers are obviously implausible, even a quarter or a fifth of these staggering totals would drastically outnumber the defense at Tor, which was arguably deciding the fate of Western Europe in the same period. We will describe one of these intermittent campaigns and use it as a microcosm rather than listing them all. Buoyed by recent successes in the war, the Khazars invaded Muslim lands in modern Azerbaijan in 730, led by Bajik, probably a son of the Khagan. He seems to have been a traditionally merciless steppe warlord who callously ordered his heavily armoured, light-skinned, red-haired and blue-eyed Khazar cavalry forces to slay any Muslim they came across. After marching his main force towards Ardabil, Khazar armies met a 25,000 strong Arab force outside the city walls and totally crushed it, killing its commander Al-Jara ibn Abdallah in the process. It is said that Bajik mounted the dead Arab leader's head on a throne, from which he led the Khazar armies throughout the campaign. However, the victors quickly and unwisely began to scatter throughout the area in search of loot and plunder, which allowed the Arabs to counterattack and drive them back across the mountains. Bajik himself narrowly escaped capture. Khazar victory gave way to Muslim success, and so on, a state of affairs which would define this war. It was also an incredibly bitter and brutal clash of civilizations, characterized, as author Arthur Koestler notes, by a distinct fanaticism, which we can see in the extreme actions many of the combatants took.
Right. Now, Arthur Koestler was the one that came up with the book called The 13th Tribe. If you don't have that in your collection, you need to get it, even though now it's been revised a couple of times, because again, these same people are the people that's in charge of the media. And when it comes to, when it talks about books and what books they're trying to let us see and not see, and what books that they take off the shelf, it's these same people. So.
For example, an entire surrounded Khazar village supposedly committed collective suicide by fire rather than surrender to the enemy. The conflict ended when the Muslims managed to invade Khazaria and force the Khagan to convert to Islam, but it seems like a hollow, insincere conversion because we never hear of it again. On the operational scale, matters were inconclusive, but on the grand strategic scale, Islam's titanic pincer movement had been halted in the east by the Khazars and in the west by the Franks at almost the same time. This was the end of Umayyad expansionary efforts against the Khazars, and even the end of an Umayyad-ruled caliphate, as the less expansionist Abbasids took power in 750. Rather than going into more of the military and politics of the Khazars, we'll instead discuss two things that they are known for above all others: their religion and their trade. Unlike the vast majority of empires in Eurasia at the time, and perhaps uniquely among them, the Khazars were officially a Jewish state, having converted in roughly the year 740, though the date is a matter of scholarly debate. What was the reason for this, and how did it come to pass? At the beginning of the 8th century, the Mediterranean world was polarized primarily between Christianity and Islam, faiths which served almost as the religious arm of their respective realms, and would inevitably be used to gain political domination over the newly converted. The Khazar Empire was a powerful realm of its own, which represented a third force, and had proved itself a diplomatic and military equal to the Caliphate and the Empire, even having placed their own candidate on the Roman throne. Yet, interacting with these sophisticated civilizations had made Khazar rulers realize that their Tengriist shaman beliefs could not grant spiritual, legal, and dynastic legitimacy like the great monotheistic faiths could. However, the Khazars could not accept Christianity or Islam. Accepting conversion to either superpower's religion would automatically subordinate Khazars to either the emperor or the caliph. So, it seemed like the only logical choice was to, as the third major power, choose the third major religion, which did not have as many strings attached: Judaism. How this happened isn't entirely certain. There was no momentous event like Rome's Battle of the Milvian Bridge, for example, which eventually led to the empire's conversion to Christianity. However, there are certain trends which can explain why it happened when it did. Even before the Khazar ruling caste put Tengriism aside, the Northern Kingdom, as Byzantium called it, had extensive connections with Jews and their religious practices. There were old prominent Jewish communities on the Crimean and Taman peninsulas which had existed ever since Greek and Roman times, living in cities such as Panticapaeum and Phanagoria. External events in the early 700s were to increase the Jewish presence in Khazaria to an unprecedented degree. Persecution of Jews in the Byzantine Empire began in the reign of Justinian, but particularly intensified under the reigns of Heraclius and Leo III the Isaurian, the latter of whom sought to forcibly baptize and thus convert Jewish citizens to Christianity in 722.
You see that? So not only was this happening to us, because they was doing this to us, right? Taking us, snatching us away from our parents, separating us. The parents were still trying to keep the Sabbath and all these things. They were killing them. But they also was doing that to these people as well, because again, they had a form of our culture, right, mixed with theirs. And if we go back and look at one of the Assyrian kings that came and put these other strange people in the land in Israel, that because Israel was taken out, they put them in, and then lions came down there and started attacking them. So what did? They went and got some real Levite priests and brung there to teach them how to the rest of some more of these commandments. See, so it's a twofold thing. So when you start saying about Jewish people being persecuted, you got to understand what history is. That's why we're going through this. But as you see, here they are now. He said, I don't understand how they did it. They did it so smooth. They didn't have to have an army because they was already trained in it. We taught them some of it. So they just eased right in 70 AD. That's when they made their major move. So again.
While Leo's decree was not effectively enforced, the policy led many Jews to flee from Byzantium and into Khazar lands, including from Roman possessions in Crimea. Simultaneously, the Jews also migrated into Khazaria from the Muslim world, but in far smaller numbers. The refugees which fled to Khazar lands represented themselves as bearers of an old, sophisticated ancient culture, and were almost definitely a key factor in creating a cosmopolitan outlook of tolerance in Attil, the Khazar capital, which Arab travelers admired. It can also be speculated that Jewish missionary refugees, who also brought Byzantine arts, crafts, and superior methods of agriculture and trade, probably used this influence to persuade the inner Khazar tribes of the political and spiritual advantages of conversion to the neutral Judaism. Whatever the case, by the mid-800s at the latest, Jewish-themed Moses coins were being issued in Khazar territories, a fact which allows us to segue onto the second stereotypically Khazar activity, trade. Khazar lands were known, especially in the 8th and 9th centuries, as a land of plenty. The Persian geographical essay Hudud al-Alam states, "This is a very pleasant and prosperous country with great riches. From it come cows, sheep, and innumerable slaves." Unsurprisingly, such a place attracted significant amounts of commercial activity from all quarters. Straddling important trade routes along the Azov and Black and Caspian Seas, the Don River, and especially on the Volga River, Khazaria functioned as a nexus for trade moving east and west, north and south, and this allowed the Khagan to make a killing from Silk Road profits. Customs duties were imposed on merchandise transported into the steppe realm by land or sea. When traders of the Rus brought valuables they intended to export past Attil, for example, the Khazars taxed them in proportion to the value of their goods. Lesser chiefs and tribal leaders also demanded payment for transport through their own local territories, as shown when more Rus merchants reached Sarkal in the late 800s, and the local governor took a tenth of their merchandise as tribute. They weren't just extractors of wealth, however, and Khazar merchants from the inner tribes were often directly involved in trading. According to Persian geographer Gardazi, the Khazars exported natively produced candle wax and honey, in addition to exotic wine, which was manufactured in Samandar. Traders from the northern kingdom also found their way to Volga Bulgaria, Khwarezm, China, India, and even Sweden, where there was a small Khazar colony at Birka in Lake Mela. Traders from other lands would also flock to and settle in the capital at Attil in order to sell their goods.
Right, and if you guys, I don't know if you guys notice or not, but the Silk Road has been reinstated. So much so that the Chinese had a big part to do with that, because they have laid like this speeding type of train. It's like a rail that they put in place. So they've opened the Silk Road back up. Just, I don't know if you guys knew that or not, but it's a fact. So Silk Road is a real situation, and we can see how they was always manipulating money. That was their thing. Come on now, don't do this to me.
Chinese merchants brought fine silk dresses and sophisticated mirrors from the Tang Empire, while Arabs came in search of particularly prized Khazar furs, originating from the northern wildernesses and Scandinavia. Weaving these two threads of religion and commerce together are the Jewish Radhanite merchants, a commerce-oriented people hypothesized to have originated either in Mesopotamia or the Rhone Valley in France. They were prominent among the Khazar merchants who ventured to such far-flung eastern destinations as China, India, and other parts of Asia. They also traveled as far west as Spain. According to Matthew Goodman, for more than 100 years, virtually every bit of spice that entered Christian Europe did so as a result of Radhanite trade. These merchants also exported items such as swords, silk, furs, and slaves from Europe and North Africa. In his Book of Roots and Kingdoms, Persian geographer and explorer Ibn Khordadbeh tells us that the Radhanites were an incredibly multilingual community, capable of speaking languages such as Persian, Slavic, Spanish, Frankish, Greek, and Arabic. As a people of commerce, this expertise in language must have provided a distinct advantage, since they would encounter trading partners from distant areas of the world and from many diverse cultures. It's even possible that these Radhanites played a crucial role in prompting the Khagan and his nobles' conversion to Judaism. At the beginning of the 10th century, despite controlling territories from the Aral Sea in the east to the Dnieper River in the west, and from the Upper Volga in the north to the Caucasus in the south, Khazaria was beginning to weaken. New nomadic invaders from the east, such as the Magyars and Pechenegs, began to rampage through their lands, while the competitive, warlike, and equally mercantile Varangians of Kievan Rus began to exert pressure on the Khazars, cutting off their dominion west of the Dnieper River. For half a century, beginning in around the year 900, the Khazars became tangled up in multiple disputes with the Rus, many of which resulted in violence and defeats for both sides, but it was becoming evident that the northern kingdom's dominance had been lost. The final blow came in the late 960s, when the ambitious Rus prince, Sviatoslav of Kiev, sailed down the Volga River and seized Ato, sacking and razing it, dismantling the Khagan's realm in the process. Several decades later, Sviatoslav's son, Vladimir, asserted Rus authority over former Khazar territories, including Samandar, the revered vineyards and gardens of which were burned in the conquest. It seems that land and riches weren't the only things the Rus seized from the Khazars. 20th century historian Julius Bretskus proposed that the ancient Kievan state also inherited sophisticated customs, legal procedures, governmental frameworks, and military organization. Refugees from the crumbling Khazar Empire are controversially hypothesized by some historians to have been the source of Eastern Europe's future Ashkenazi Jewish community, but this is a matter of intense genetic analysis and historical debate, which will likely go on for years to come. We will continue talking about steppe civilizations, so make sure you are subscribed to our channel and have pressed the bell button. We would like to express our gratitude to our Patreon supporters and channel members who make the creation of our videos possible.
Now, again, if these guys have some kings and generals, man, they have some really fascinating stuff up there. So can you guys see this now? Hello?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, are you guys back to the original of the Jews? You can see that right here?
Yes.
Okay, so that's just a brief history, and it's a lot of other history out there, but we're gonna get some other stuff we're gonna get into as we try to finish this book. I'm gonna show you how these guys took over what they call the Middle East, and they built the Suez Canal, and this fighting that's been going on. It's been going on from this time, and this is what it is, and this is these people. For the Jews of today fall in within two main types: the Sephardic Jew and the Ashkenazi Jew. The Sephardim are also known as Spanish Jews and constitute about 5% of the Jews in the world. The Ashkenazim are the East European Jews, which were found in Poland, Russia, Germany, and Western Asia. See, now the Spanish Jews, we got some stuff on that. Brother, what's the name, put that together. It's really good too, because it goes from the Pope and how I mean, how they just read, they just did us real crazy. But they weren't doing this to these Ashkenazians, because again, they're the same, they're relatives, put it that way. The Ashkenazians are the Eastern European Jews, which were found in Poland, Russia, Germany, and Western Asia. This group of Jews make up 90% of the so-called Jews in the world. Many reference in historical sources has been unequivocally identified that the bulk of the Ashkenazi Jews were derived from a people known as Khazars or Khazars in some texts. The original Jewish Encyclopedia of 1905, and I've been trying to find this thing right here, man. I've looked everywhere for a copy of it, and I cannot find it. Revealed that the main stock of the Jews came from this Asiatic people known as Khazars or Khazars, a people of Turkish origin whose life and history are interwoven with the very beginnings of history of Jews of Russia. Historical evidence points to the region of Urals and the home of the Khazars. Now, the Khazars were nomadic people who had no traces of Hebraic culture. They had been following a pagan and sex-orientated religion until they had officially embraced Judaism, which we know there is no ism. That's what they call it. And that's what keeps messing people's heads up in 7040 AD. While rejecting Christianity and Mohammedanism, the Jewish authority and historian Arthur Koestler also concludes that the majority of East European Jews, and hence of world Jewry, is one of Khazar, and not of the Semitic origin. Because when we looked up the word Semitic, we know what it's going to tell us. We watched a video today with this professor, this Arabian professor, broke it down so sweet. In the beginning of his book, he states the large majority of surviving Jews in the world is Eastern European, and thus perhaps mainly of Khazar origin. If so, this would mean that their ancestors came not from Jordan, but from Volga, not from Canaan, but from Caucasus, like the Caucasus Mountains, and that genetically they are more closely related to the Hun, Uighur, or Magyar tribes than the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Koestler then devotes the remainder of his 255-page book to prove these premises. For instance, of records of the letter by the Khazar king, who was King Bulan, shows that he traces people to Noah's son Japheth, not Shem. So the scriptures tell us that Japheth was going to dwell in the tents of Shem. And then it also, when the Mashiach says all these things are going to be, that Israel is going to be trampled down by the Gentiles until the time of his coming. See? I mean, it's all in the scripture. You just got to understand where to find it. Japheth, not Shem, and Japheth's grandson, Togarmah, the ancestor of the Turkish tribe. The Khazar government was destroyed by the Slavs of Russia in 1016 AD. Around 1200 AD, the land was invaded by the hordes of Genghis Khan. These two events caused large numbers of Khazars to migrate to Poland, Western Russia, forming the crater of Western Jewry, because we see before that the Vikings came in and took the northern part. So between the Russians and Genghis Khan, they took the rest of it. There is an abundance of ancient places named in the Ukraine and Poland where derived from Khazar or Zahid, which they say Jew. As the Khazars left their homeland of Khazaria and migrated north and west, they lost their name and became known as Jews. Their Yiddish language and alphabet, not the alphabet, is not that of the Israelites, Phoenician Greek style, but as an amalgamation of Aramaic, medieval German, Slavic, and Russian dialects. That's why we always try to learn the Paleo-Hebrew first, because when you start trying to learn this, what they call modern Hebrew, this is where you have these different dots and dashes, and that's added, right? Right, these tittles and jots that's added. Right, and that's how they had to do that, so that they took the alphabet and then they modernized it, and then they started using these different things so that they could actually verbalize the language. The best historical evidence, therefore, shows that the Jews are not descendants directly from the Israelites of the Bible, but derive much of their ancestry from the Khazars, and other people of Turkish Asiatic blood. The Khazars are also of Edomite stock, and both stocks make up the present-day Jews. As a historian, H.G. Wells states, the Idumeans, Edomites were made Jews, and the Turkish people, Khazars, were mainly Jews in South Russia. The main part of Jewry never was in Judea and had never come out of Judea. According to the Jewish Encyclopedia, the original stock of the Khazars came from the land of Edom. What time is it? Yeah. Hasdai ibn Sukrut, who was foreign minister to Abd al-Rahman, Sultan of Cordova, in his letter to King Joseph of the Khazars about 1960, speaks of the tradition according to which the Khazars once dwelt near the Seir Mountains, Mount Seir, right? Because what the scripture said, he builds his nest like the eagle high in the cliffs. And you can actually go on YouTube and they have some different people that have actually went to the cities. They have some of the buildings are still standing there where they had actual cities high up in the mountains, just like the scripture said. The Seir Mountains are none other than the original land of Esau, Edom. Thus dwelt Esau on Mount Seir. Esau is Edom. Seir was a mountain range south of the Dead Sea and was also known as the land of Edom. And another thing that lets me know this to be this research I've been doing over the years to be true, I got sickle cell trait. And it's also some people that's some Jewish people from around the Black Sea, they also have it too. We're the only two people in the world that have that. It's Black people and these Jewish people are the only ones in the world that have this sickle cell anemia or sickle cell trait. The Seir Mountains were the home of the Edomites for nearly a millennium. Thus, it should be no surprise that migrants from that land would be called the name of their land, of their original homeland. If the Khazars did originally dwell near the Seir Mountains, then the Khazars and thus world Jewry are racially of Edomite stock. But how and when did Edomites get to Khazaria? There is evidence that in the 6th century BC, some of the Edomites fled their homeland of Seir and migrated north. After the fall of Jerusalem in 586 BC, the Edomites began to press northward. Tells you that Ezekiel 36:5. The extent and ultimate destination of this northward trek is not found in history, but it's likely that it brought some Edomites to the region of Khazaria. The Edomites were also cast out of Palestine and dispersed in different directions in 70 AD. When the Romans sacked Jerusalem, many thousand of these people are known to have migrated northward to Asia Minor and around the Black Sea region. When dealing with a people of a mixed racial heritage, it becomes a real quandary to ascertain their origin. The Jews of today are such a people. In fact, the Jews themselves assert they are mongrels because of the original mixed ancestry of the Jews and their subsequent history of intermixture with every people among whom they have lived and continue to live. That's what they do. That's why I say when people say, well, yeah, you can't just say every white man is Edom. You can't do that. But then again, we have to understand that, that they're still in their feelings because they feel, still holding on to whatever happened to them or our ancestors. But it's what it's about. It's about the love of Yahuwah. It's about Yahuwah, because disobedience caused all these things. So you really can't blame anybody but yourself. The anthropologist, Professor Carlton Kuhn, has also demonstrated the admixture of different Jewish types with other races. He explains that while the Jews cannot be classed as a race per se, they are an ethnic group. The Jews form an ethnic group that, like all ethnic groups, they have their own racial elements distributed in their own proportions. Like all or most ethnic groups, they have their own look. A part of their cultural heritage, they both preserve and express their cultural solidarity. They have developed a special racial subtype and a special pattern of facial and bodily expressions, and they sure do. When we talk of the racial mixtures that brought about the Jews of today, we must highlight the events surrounding the Babylonian captivity of Judah. The remainder of the Judah nation, which included some of the tribes of Benjamin, Levi, and Simeon, was taken by Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. But at the same time, Edom was also put under Babylonian rule, causing some of the Edomites to be brought to Babylon. We know that because that's in Jeremiah. When Persia overthrew Babylon, King Cyrus issued a decree allowing the Judah, here go this Judah to return to their land and rebuild the temple. However, only about 50,000 returned to Palestine. Some of them had apparently departed to their kinsmen in Europe, right? However, many of the Judahites and Benjamites referred to remain in Babylonia, becoming a part of the indigenous population. So we can see now, if we notice here, this guy will not say no matter what. He knows the history, but he will not. He always tries to point them back to Europe. He never says anything about a Hamite looking Jew or anything like that, if you notice that, right? Because we know through history that it was more than 50,000 of them that came back to the land to help Ezra and Nehemiah try to rebuild the temple, see? And it's a lot of them that did stay over there, because we see Esther was even in power and all this type of stuff over there now. But anyway, however, many of the Judahites and Benjamites preferred to remain in Babylonia, becoming part of the indigenous population. Those remaining intermarried with the Babylonians and Edomites that were in the land and adopted their religion and law, the Babylonian Talmud, which became the foundation for Judaism. That's a fact. This is one of the other books that we've been learning about, the Mishnah and the Talmud.
They have two of them. They have the Babylonian one,
Right.
And the one.
Right.
Jerusalem.
Right. And that's what they use. And that's the same thing they was dealing with as far as when the Mashiach was concerned. These then became the Babylonian Jews. Then many of the people of the land became Jews. See, Esther 8 and 17. I just said Esther. So we're going to stop right here because it's 8:56. But next week, we're going to start at 8 o'clock. And then we might not go the whole 2 hours. It's up to you guys, how you want to do it. But we're going to stop right here. And we got a little bit more. This is not a big book. It's kind of like a little small book. But this guy has a lot of information in here. So let's do this here. I'm hoping you guys, it's not too much for you guys. Hope you guys.
Shovel,
Yes.
is this, hold on a second. Is this book a downloadable, or we need to go on and get it?
Yeah, it's a
ourselves?
downloadable, but I had said before you guys got here, it was some other people that I was supposed to be emailing this to. And they wouldn't let me email until I gave them control of my emails, and they can delete my emails and go into my emails and do all this kind of stuff. These people are crazy, but
Yeah.
I mean, that was the problem, because I had tried to email this to everybody.
Yeah, we
So.
tried to get it. We couldn't get it either.
All right,
Yeah.
okay, well, I'll go look for it myself.
No. I mean, I already gave them permission. I look at it like this. They already got everything anyway. They already know who we are. They know who I am. I mean, it's, we was looking at some stuff online, and then I said, well, let's on YouTube. I go back to Google to try to see if I can, and it already pops up. And so, I mean, it is what it is. It is what it is. So I'm gonna put the other lesson up here that I couldn't put up. I don't know what happened to that. I'm gonna put this up here, part 2, what we did, and then we'll finish going over the priesthood tomorrow if Yah wakes us all up. All right.
All right.
All right. So I'm hoping you guys get Jasmine. Are you getting anything out of this?
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, what was, you told us to look up something, but I couldn't remember what it was. You said you were going to send us like hints.
Oh, the
throughout week.
Byzantine,
Okay.
and the
Okay.
Turks. We're gonna get to that
Okay.
in this series. I'm gonna show you guys some videos, man. I found some. I'm hoping I can get to them before they take them down. Because like, remember that other one they took down, that 5-hour long one, and I have it, but I can't. It won't even let me email it or do nothing. That's one of the best videos I ever seen on these people in my life. They go ahead to show what really happened with Hitler and all these things, but a lot of people don't want to hear that. So with that being said, y'all, I know y'all sleepy, and so I'm gonna go ahead and put this up there. We're gonna be all these book classes. So I showed the class that this is a book that you want to get. It's called The History of Edom and Khazarians by Malachi York. And as we keep going with this stuff, I told you guys, once we get done with this one, we're going to get into the book of Jubilees. So I know Kim Noel, I know you guys gonna know Mamas, but Jasmine, I'm knowing you're gonna be here, but it's a couple other people. And once I see who's actually gonna be up here all the time, then I'm gonna go ahead and get the books for everybody so we can start going through this book of Jubilees next.
Okay.
After we get done. And we're gonna have a lot of books. You might even go through this one too. So if you guys can, it's like $22. You need to get.
Yeah, you can go to albris.com, ALBRIS.com, and it's $22.
Yeah, they had a red, it used to be in blue, but they revived this one a lot of times too. So the revised edition of History of Edom, the Imposter Jew. So by Melchizedek Y. Lewis.
Yeah.
Melchizedek Y. Lewis. So you should be able to find. This is real good. This is the one I was reading when I was in the VA. I was almost done with it, and the rabbi came in my room. And by the time we got done talking, that joker was like astonished. So I was like, okay, this is a good history book. Because he couldn't, he just wanted to know who was teaching me. That was his thing. How did you escape the mega church? That's what he asked me. So let's I'm sorry, y'all. It's just funny. Oh man. But anyway, all right, let's go ahead and close out with real quick with a quick prayer, and then we'll be on class tomorrow at 3 o'clock. I got 2 other people that's coming, and hopefully they'll stick around. Ab Yahuwah, we come before you, Father, thanking you for all things, thanking you for this information so that we can know who our enemy is, Father. And that's going to help us draw closer to you. Thank you for all things. Thank you for our beautiful little community. We praise you for each and every one. We ask that you watch over each and every one and shine your face on each and every one. And we thank you, Ab Yahuwah, for all your love and your ultimate love gift, Yahushua HaMashiach. In Yahshua's name we pray. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. All right.
Hallelujah.
I'll see y'all.
Good night.
Good night, Kim.
Shalom.
Good night, Noel.
Good night,
Hello.
Marjorie. Oh, Marjorie, how's Danny?
When I talked to her, he was still on the respirator thing, but